Modern politics is and has been split in a dialectic between what is called the right and the left. Fundamentally, the left is preoccupied with equality and much more easily recognized. Contrasting, the right accepts both inequality and hierarchy as inevitable and natural, at the very least, and often a positive thing for society in its various incarnations. Traditionally speaking, and almost universally across the civilized world, these presuppositions of the modern right would be considered obvious facts of reality. It should be noted that there was no quote unquote right wing politics back in the day because, by modern standards, everything from bygone eras would be considered now to be far right. And until the French Revolution, the political left hadn't really materialized as a coherent force in politics. The political right only developed historically as a distinct thing by its opposition to the left in various incarnations. And essentially, since the French Revolution, politics in the Western world has been the tension between these two rival factions, with the general pull of history being slowly but inevitably leftward. People today are as they always have been, in that we are creatures of both time and place. American conservatives rail against what they call liberals, and progressives, and vice versa. This interplay between the two factions is the paradigm we're currently living in, but to create a positive vision of the future requires us to think beyond the left and right political paradigm. By this, I don't mean we need some kind of synthesized third positionism arrived at by dialectic. No. Before we can adequately answer political questions, we must first examine the fundamental non-political ones. As individuals and political movements, we need to look at the scope of history and divine revelation to understand what we as humanity truly are, which will inform us as to what we should be building in our own lives and how to shape our communities. In a post-modern, largely post-Christian world, however, what is to be the guiding star that leads us? The past is full of a tremendous wealth of stories and real-life characters who can speak to what we should be striving toward. Perhaps the greatest examples come from Scripture in both the Old and New Testaments, be it Christ's perfection, the apostles, saints or great kings, and leaders of ancient Israel. For those who currently lack faith, there are a myriad of great kings of old, men of learning and culture, who can also serve as types for us to emulate. Western cultural artifacts of literature and theater further enrich the soul, be it Tolkien's fantastical Lord of the Rings trilogy, Shakespeare's plays, or the epics of ancient Greece. These speak to who we are as a people and what we can become should we deny ourselves immediate pleasure for the sake of building something great that will continue on past our time. Fundamentally, man is a religious being, protestations of the new atheists aside, for even they held unyielding notions of scientific progress, science as the guiding star on how we should orient our lives and humanity's ability for greatness. They would also often make moral declarations in the name of their worldview, while decrying the perceived shortcomings of others. The difference between them and the intelligent theist, though, is that the theists recognize the necessity of God and the transcendent for there to be any basis for the good itself, which the new atheist community tended to either skim over or merely assert. The title of the late Christopher Hitchens' book, God is Not Great, itself begs the question, what is great? What does it mean to be good? Supposing all the things that he claims against Judeo-Christian God to be true, how could they be bad if there's no underlying, unmoving, and unchanging source of goodness in creation itself? Looking beyond the left and right paradigm, these are the sorts of questions we must ask ourselves, and the answers we must look for independently and collectively. These are essentially the eternal questions, and ones which not only great minds but the wider culture attempted to answer in the past, and often did. Now we are truly without a rudder, as the answer from society and supposed authority seems to be, you should be you, be true to yourself. That is ultimately the vaguest and most empty answer of all. A neo-fascist, monarchist, paleo-libertarian, and a fan of early American republic might be united in their opposition to the progressive agenda, but their ideas for the future political order vary a great deal. Part of this is practical considerations over what might be the most stable or prosperous political order, But the other side of it is they have competing visions of what man is, what man should be, and how the whole man is best fulfilled in society. These are not political left-right questions. These are ethical, anthropological, and religious ones. These are questions which are either ignored by wider society or consciously undermined and subverted by a toxic pop culture and education. Ultimately, these are the questions which must be publicly asked and answered satisfactorily if we are ever to relearn what it is to be us. Well, that's all, folks. If you've enjoyed this episode of Beyond Left and Right, I would highly encourage you to like, share, and subscribe, get the word out, and I'll talk to you next time.